And lastly, I'm just going to say, I hate to say it, but Kirk is the common denominator in all of this, and his offenses are just flat out too poor, and he has not been competitive against real good teams. He can still beat the middle of the pack per se, and the lower echelon of the Big Ten for sure. But we got to get back to the point where we can at least be competitive with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, and not lose and embarrass ourselves on national television yet again. So,
another way, talking about self-examination, another way to analyze where we are is to ask the question this way, Corey. Do we belong more with those teams that are ranked in the top 20 or top 10? Or do we belong more with all those other teams that we've been able to beat, if only by a few points? We clearly belong more with the ones we've been beating.
Yeah, I was thinking about that pre-show, Don, because it's almost like Iowa has established, and we'll see what happens this year, because the rest of the schedule, the last 8 games on the schedule, 7 games, are so winnable. And I think they may be favored in every game. They could be. We'll see. I don't know how much this loss affects how Vegas and the people that make those decisions, how that affects their beliefs in Iowa. But yeah. I look at where Iowa, the ladder, so to speak, or the totem pole, kind of what you're describing, and it's almost like Iowa's built a little tier of their own, right? Like they've established themselves as basically better than everybody but the top tier.
Well, let's say it this way. If the experts had to put us in one group or the other, which group would they put us in?
I know, but Iowa consistently beats everybody in that second tier that you're talking about, Don. They consistently
by
the
thinnest of margins. We're at the top of that group. That's where we are.
We're at the top of that group, but they beat everybody last year with Deacon Bacon Hill. So, I'm just saying that's the consistency's there. They did it 3 years ago with Spencer Petras at quarterback, where they won 10 games.
But here's my point. Where is the big divide? The big divide is ahead of us, not behind us.
I agree.
In terms of ranking.
100%. And the stat here that everybody's talking about, and I don't know if this was brought up today, but this is Iowa's numbers against ranked opponents since the beginning of last year. They've been outscored 127-7. And you could argue it's really like 127-0 because, today's touchdown kind of came in garbage time. Was that brought up to Kirk at all today?
No, mainly because they scored. So it was just sort of like, okay, sure. What are we talking about here? So we didn't bring it up. Had they been shut out, it would have been brought up. It would have been brought up for sure. Because everybody until Caleb scored that touchdown, they had not scored a touchdown on offense since the Michigan game against a top 20, 25 opponent since the Michigan game, the end of the Michigan game in 2022, October 1st. So basically 2 years they have gone without scoring an offense because, the only other score was the Joe Evans scoop and score here.
Yeah, that's disturbing, right? That's more than just bad. That's disturbing, isn't it? 127-7.
I'll say this though: they haven't played a lot of ranked opponents, but when they have, they've just gotten dusted. They've got slaughtered. Yeah, it's been good.
Another way to ask: when is the last time we beat a ranked opponent?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
2021, the Penn State game.
That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm guessing it was. Yeah, that's my guess.
That's sad.
Here's my frustration with all this is that from 2002, when Brad Banks took over, to 2004, so a 3-year span consistently, Iowa finished in the top 10. Now we've given up 127 points and scored a garbage touchdown against a ranked team in the last, 4 games? I mean, what's got to give? Iowa fan, I get it. 9-10 wins. Most programs strive for that every year. I think Iowa fans that are my age, around my generation, We know, we've seen it. You expect more than a 35-7 ass kicking in Columbus. I'm sorry. I don't care how talented they look on paper. That second half was a disaster. If Cade McNamara starts as quarterback after this game, guys, when does something give? I don't care where you point the blame. Is it Cade? Is it the O-line? Is it Caleb? Is it lack of receivers? Is it I don't know what it is anymore. I'm just telling you, I have seen Iowa sustain greatness for 3 straight years. And why can't we get back there?
And you're talking about 02, 03, and 04.
Correct, Coach.
Yeah. Well, one reason, to be honest with you, we had a quarterback back then that could extend plays, right?
Well, that's not I mean, go back to 2008, 2009, 2010. They were competitive against the best teams those years. They beat Penn State in 08, 09, and 10. They played Ohio State to overtime in the shoe with a backup quarterback, a freshman backup quarterback in 09 with a Rose Bowl chance on the line. They beat Georgia Tech in an Orange Bowl. I mean, there were others. I agree with you, caller. And like I said, I'm sure I'm going to get destroyed in the chat because I made the statement that I don't think Cade was all that bad today. I just don't. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's embarrassing where this team is at as it relates to competing against the best of the best. And I have not focused in or honed in on that aspect of Iowa's struggles of late because I've kind of attributed those issues to primarily be the offensive woes. And I still think in large part that's where it's at. Tim Lester's 5 games into his tenure as Iowa's offensive coordinator. This is their first real test. Like they got tested against Iowa State and they lost. But there's no comparing Ohio State and Iowa State right now. So I'm not saying you excuse Tim Lester for his shortcomings today, but we all knew this was going to be a project. They were climbing out of a deep, deep sewer on offense. And so I would think that if they can return and consistently get more balanced production out of the offense, like they did back in 08 to 10, from 2002 to 2004, and even back into the 2015, even 16, they weren't great in 16. I get it. But, even into the Nate Stanley era, they were more competitive against the best teams. I think when you get more balance on offense, which is going to take more time with Tim Lester as the OC, then hopefully they stop laying these big eggs against the best teams. But I understand where he's coming from, Don. I'm sure you do as well. That level of frustration, because this is when you see these trends, 127-7, that's pretty demonstrative. That's pretty specific, right? And so it is what it is. But those are issues that this coaching staff will have to address, whether it's just a matter of the offense getting collectively better and more balanced. I think that's part of it.